My heart beats out of my chest as I hang up the phone. I quickly run to the office and explain to my supervisor what's going on, telling her that I have a family emergency and I must leave work immediately. After grabbing my things, I dash to my car and jump inside, not even bothering to buckle my seatbelt. I barely even get the door closed behind me before I peel off out of the parking lot. For a moment, I struggle to grab my cell phone from my purse, and once I reach it, I dial my husband's number. When it goes straight to voicemail, I hang up, deciding not to leave him a message. I don't want to worry him. I mean, I'm sure it's nothing. My husband Shane is out of town attending a wedding in another state. It's for a buddy of his that he's been friends with since high school. I was never fond of the guy, so that's why he went alone, and he won't be returning for another few days. I glance at the dashboard in a daze, realizing it's just about time for school to get out, so I decide to take the highway home to avoid traffic. As I make my way onto the entrance ramp, I pass by a school bus full of children and just about burst into tears thinking about the fact that my 2 kids would be on their way home from school right now if I hadn't kept them home today. My 10-year-old son Isaiah hasn't been feeling well for the past week, but when I suggested taking a day off of work to take him to the doctor, he assured me it was only a sore throat and the sniffles. And that's all I thought it was, until he woke up with a fever of 101 last night. He said that he felt dizzy, and then he started throwing up. Of course, just like every other mother on the planet would have done, I went right into panic mode. After calling my sister to come stay with my daughter, I rushed him to the emergency room. It turned out he only had a bad case of the flu. Thankfully, it wasn't something more serious. Then this morning, when I got up to check on him again, he seemed to be feeling a little better, and since my sister was already there because she ended up spending the night, she volunteered to stay with him while I went into work for a few hours. Before I leave, I go to wake up my 12-year-old daughter Elena, and now she has a fever as well. So I ended up keeping them both home from school. I was only scheduled to work 5 hours today. I'm a cashier at Dollar General, and after I'd been there for about 2.5 hours, I receive a frantic phone call from my sister. She's crying hysterically. I can barely hear what she's saying. Finally, when she calms down enough to speak clearly, she manages to explain what's going on. Apparently, she was walking our new puppy Chester in the backyard, and somehow he got loose. I assume he slid out of his leash. He's done it to me already a few times. He went running into the woods, and she lost sight of him. So she went back inside to call me, and once the kids found out what had happened, they went running out of the house chasing after him. At that moment, I'm still not understanding what in the world she's so upset about. Although I'm a little mad at her for letting the kids run outside while they're sick, I'm sure they'll catch the dog and come right back. But that's when she breaks the bad news to me. "I'm so sorry, Liz. They've been gone for over an hour now, and I went into the woods to look for them, but I can't find them." My heart skips a beat because they know better than to stay gone that long. "What should I do? Do you want me to call the police?" she asks through her tears. No, I'm sure there's no reason to panic. I'll be there soon. I'm leaving now." I'm trying my best not to worry, but them being gone for an hour already is just really giving me a bad feeling in the pit of my stomach. I swerve into my driveway, jump out of the car, and then start to race toward the backyard, but then turn around after realizing I left the car running. I dash back over to the driveway, shut it off, remove the keys from the ignition, and place them into my pocket, then head for the backyard once again. My sister Angie is sitting on the back deck, still crying her eyes out. I give her a hug and ask if she remembers what direction they ran off in. She points to the left, so I grab her by the hand and pull her toward the woods, but she stops me. "Wait, do you think we should leave them a note? Just in case they come back while we're gone." "Yeah, that's a good idea," I tell her. So I quickly write one and leave it on the dining room table where I know they'll see it. Then we enter the woods, and as we start trudging through the mounds of leaves, I shout their names one after the other, pausing a few seconds in between to wait for a reply. But the only thing I hear are my sister's cries and apologies and the slight howl of the wind. We continue searching, making sure to keep our eyes peeled for any sign of them. But about an hour later, when I glance at my watch and realize how much time has passed, I really start to get nervous. Angie suggests searching the other side of the woods, but I debate whether or not it's time to call the police. I figure the more people looking for them, the better, because we'll probably find them a lot quicker than when it's just the two of us searching. She assures me that this type of thing happens all of the time, and that they probably just got lost out there. Those are my thoughts exactly, but it doesn't make me feel any better hearing her confirm them. The fact of the matter is, my kids are not where they are supposed to be, and not only that, they're both sick with the flu. It'll be getting dark in a few hours, and if we don't find them by then, I don't know what I'll do. Then suddenly, I hear the faint sound of a dog barking. I grab Angie by the arm and tell her to be quiet. Did you hear that? She stifles her cries for a second. What? I didn't hear anything. I could have sworn I heard a dog barking. She listens closely, and then a moment later, the sound reverberates through the woods once again. Yes, I heard it. Come on, I think it's coming from this way, I tell her as I head through the woods, but this time in the other direction. She trails along behind me as we listen for the barking yet again. But when I don't hear it for at least another 5 minutes, I start to call out the kids' names once more. Not knowing where I'm going, I start racing through the woods anyway, determined to find them. When another breeze blows, I zip up my jacket, a pang of guilt running through me. Elena and Isaiah are probably freezing right now. Angie said that when they ran out of the house this morning, they were only wearing their pajamas and slippers. As we continue to look for them, Angie suddenly stops and starts shouting from somewhere behind me. I turn around to see what it is she's yelling about, and she's staring at something with a terrified look on her face. I head back over to where she is and stand there, frozen in fear when I realize what it is she's looking at. There is a small tree where the woods split into 2 separate directions, and wrapped around it are collars. Dog collars. I can't take my eyes off of it. It's the strangest thing I've ever seen. When Angie lifts her finger and points at one specific collar, my stomach drops. The red and plaid bow tie collar I instantly recognized because I remember taking the kids shopping right after we got our puppy, and that's the one they picked out for him. It could just be a coincidence. I mean, I'm sure lots of stores sell that very same one, except for the eerie fact that today of all days is when our puppy ran off into these woods. I cautiously walk toward the tree, then reach out and remove it. As I twirl it around in my hands, Angie stands behind me looking over my shoulder, nervously biting her fingernails. When I make it halfway around the collar and see the name tag with the name Chester engraved into it, my heart skips a beat as it falls from my hands and lands in a pile of leaves at my feet. However, the shock and fear that's running through me at that very moment isn't what caused me to drop it. What caused me to drop it is what I've now noticed dangling from one of the other dog collars. It's my daughter Elena's beaded name necklace that her best friend made for her. She never takes it off. I yank it from the tree, causing the string to snap and beads to go flying everywhere. I start screaming her name at the top of my lungs. Angie starts to cry again, whispering, "What is going on?" Then she again suggests that we should call the police. I mean, at this point, yeah, I think it's a good idea. It's obvious someone took them. Angie grabs my hand tightly. I can tell by how badly it's shaking that she's scared and worried. I am too, but I'm trying my best not to show it. I quickly wipe a tear from the corner of my eye before she sees me about to cry. She pulls her cell phone from her pocket and says, "I'll call them. You keep looking." "Okay," I whisper. While we wait for the police to arrive, Angie and I continue to search the woods as the tall trees and their branches shield us, blocking the fading sunlight. It seems as though the woods accelerated the twilight, shrinking what would normally take an hour into just a few minutes. Before I know it, the trees have become silhouettes, the air is growing colder, and everything around us begins melting into darkness. That's when I hear something that stops me in my tracks. I pause for a second, just to make sure I'm not hearing things. When I hear it again, Angie looks at me with a look of hope in her eyes, letting me know that she heard it too. We go dashing through the woods toward the sound of their voices. As we get closer, my heart starts racing as I think, I can't believe it, we finally found them. That's when I realized that what we actually heard wasn't them at all. There is a tape recorder sitting on a tree stump playing a tape of my 2 children calling for our puppy. "Here, boy," Isaiah's voice rings out from the tiny speaker. I fall to my knees and ask, "Who would do something like this?" Angie doesn't answer. Instead, she says, "The police should be here any minute. We should meet them back at the house so that we can show them the way through the woods." No, I'm not leaving. I don't know what kind of sick, twisted person has my kids. I don't know how much time they may have left. You go, and I'm going to stay and keep looking. So Angie uses the flashlight on her phone to find her way back to the house so that she can escort the cops, and I stay to keep searching. I pull out my cell phone as well and cut on the flashlight. As Angie's footsteps start to fade away, I think about what could be happening to my kids right this very second. I creep along through the woods. The stillness of the air seems to suck even my footfalls into nothingness. Even the wind has stopped blowing, and the trees seem not to rustle, as if they are tense with nerves for what is to come. Then something breaks the silence that sends a chill down my spine. I hear the sound of a dog barking once again. I start running through the woods, screaming Chester's name. His barks get louder. They start to sound desperate, and then they turn to yelps of anguish like he's being hurt. That's when I stumble upon another tape recorder, but this one is lying on the ground, surrounded by blood. As I stare in horror, suddenly my phone rings, startling me. It's Angie, calling to tell me that she just made it back to the house, and now she's on her way with the cops. I tell her that I found another tape, and then explain what was on it. She relays the information to the officers with her, and then tells me that they want me to stay where I am and wait until they get there. No, I have to keep searching, I say before hanging up. A creepy feeling starts to come over me. Actually, creepy doesn't even quite cover it. Eerie is more like it, and that feeling causes my blood to chill in my veins. I keep running through the dark woods, the darkness casting shadows over the tall grass. When I start panting, I stop to catch my breath, and just as I do, I hear the voices of my kids once again. But this time they're calling for my sister. I try to follow the sound of their voices, but then freeze and stand there scared stiff when I hear my daughter ask, "Who are you?" And then Isaiah says, "Why are you wearing that funny mask? It's not Halloween." A distorted voice replies, "I wear a mask every day, so I guess you can say that Halloween is every day to me." An awkward silence fills the air as tension builds up inside of me, thinking about who they are facing at that very moment before the distorted voice breaks the silence. "Are you lost? I can help you find the way home. Just follow me." I start to run again. I'm running so fast now that it feels as though my feet are going to fly out from under me. Then my phone rings. I pick up and Angie asks where I am. She says that they can't find me. But before I can answer, I go tumbling down a hill and my phone goes flying out of my hand. When I open my eyes and start to get up, something lying next to me captures my attention. I probably wouldn't have even noticed it if it weren't for the tiny white paws sticking out from beneath the pile of leaves that it's been covered with. I already have a clue as to what it is before I start to move some of the leaves aside. But a tear still slides down my cheek when I see Chester lying there, bloody and stiff as a board. I frantically crawl around on the ground, searching the darkness for my phone, and then finally find it next to a tree. When I pick it up and flip it around in my hands to inspect it, I see that the screen is cracked and it won't turn back on. As I sit there contemplating what to do next, terror strikes me once more when I hear the sound of my kids screaming for help. Although I know it's most likely just another recording, I don't even want to imagine what could have happened to them. Isaiah cries, "I want my mommy," as Elena begs their captor, "Please don't hurt us." I get up and follow their cries for help, which lead me deeper into the woods. Then surprise overwhelms me when they don't lead me to another tape recorder like I thought they would. They lead me to a small hut. It stands there in the middle of the woods beneath a sprawling oak tree. The stony gray windowless walls are covered with furry moss and have vines crawling up the sides. Its roof is thickly thatched with coarse straw, and a stone chimney sticks up like an erect ear, listening for the sounds of any predators approaching. When I see a puff of smoke escape the top of the chimney, I realize that my kids could actually be in there. I cautiously and as quietly as I possibly can approach the hut, looking for anything that I can use as a weapon. But when I can't find anything, I decide not to waste any more time and bust through the small wooden door. Immediately, I see my kids each tied up to a chair, and there's a person standing there with them. They have a petite, tall, skinny frame, and they're wearing one of those Momo masks with the long black hair, bulging eyes, and hideously wide grin. I'm guessing it's the person who I heard on the tape talking to the kids. "Mommy!" Isaiah shouts as soon as he sees me, which causes their captor to turn around and lunge at me. Realizing they are holding a knife, I try to dodge them as they wildly swing it through the air at me. But they grab me by my jacket collar and then wrestle me to the floor. The kids are in the background screaming bloody murder as we're rolling around on the ground. Then suddenly I see blood and realize that the knife is shoved into the captor's abdomen. As soon as I see the blood start gushing, I pull the knife out of them, rush over to the kids, and start cutting the ropes that are confining them. That's when I hear the captor whisper, "They would have learned to love me." I tell the kids to go wait for me outside and then approach the captor and rip off their mask, gasping in shock and horror at who I see. It's my sister, Angie. I kneel down next to her. "What in the hell is going on?" She answers, "You always thought you were better than me. You stole him from me. You knew how I felt about him. This was supposed to be my life, and those should have been my kids." I stare at her for a moment with a look of confusion, but as I think back to what she just said, I remember that way back when we were in high school, she had a crush on my husband, Shane. I didn't think anything of it at the time, and when we started dating nearly a year later, I was sure that her little schoolgirl crush was done and over with. Then I start to recall something else, remembering how when she was around 10 years old, she got into a lot of trouble one summer. My parents grounded her for like 3 months because they found out she had been killing cats and dogs, then mutilating their bodies and keeping their collars as souvenirs. She would tie them around a tree in our backyard. Not wanting to be embarrassed, my parents kept it a secret from everyone, thinking that it was just a phase she'd grow out of. Then years went by without any more incidents, so we all thought it was a phase, just like my parents had thought. So that's where I'd remembered seeing that tree before, I think to myself. "Where are the police?" I scream at her. An evil grin spreads across her face as she lets out a deranged laugh. "I never called them." I stare at her with a look of pure rage in my eyes. "Why do all of this? Why not just kill me instead of involving the kids?" As blood starts to spurt from her mouth, she tells me, "I wanted you to suffer, just like I have for all of these years, and I know how much they mean to you." Then her eyes close and her body starts to go limp as she whispers her last words. "I would have been a good mother to them." Instantly, I grab her phone to call the police when it starts to vibrate in my hand. Without even looking at who it is, I answer it, and a voice I recognize starts to cry out, "Please, Angie, don't hurt my kids. I'm sorry. I know I said it was a one-time thing when we got together, but if you don't hurt them, I swear I'll leave Liz so that we can be together." "Shane?" I ask as my voice quivers. "Liz? Wait, I can explain." Don't forget to subscribe for new stories weekly. See you next time on
Nina's Nightmares.
Really? You're supposed to click the like button, not me. Ugh.